Welcome to this short video question and answer, the first in a series in which we discuss the next phase of response by business to the economic consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. My name's Nathan Peacey. I coordinate our multidisciplinary risk advisory offering, and I'm joined today by Joanne Rumley, who leads our Restructuring and Insolvency team. For the majority of businesses, the initial reaction to COVID-19 was about managing the immediate shock, dealing with urgent people, premises and supply chain issues, and making sense of government support schemes, as well as shoring up cash. While some firms remain in survival mode, many have been busy building resilience to absorb the ongoing effects of the initial shock and starting to lay the foundations for recovery. This includes starting to contemplate whether the next normal will be different to life as we knew it and what that might mean for their business model. And we'll start today by looking at some of those themes with Joanne. So Joanne, I wonder if you could help us from what you're seeing, what are the prospects for businesses to weather this crisis and to emerge successfully?
Thanks, Nathan, and hello, everyone. I think inevitably the answer to that's going to be mixed. Some businesses are in different sectors. The general health and well-being of the business before the entry into COVID will be an important factor. And I think those businesses with good customer and brand loyalty are going to do really well as their customers and brand withstand the storm. I think there's lots of factors that impact on this, looking at strong leadership during this process and inclusive behaviours and recognition of diversity of thought is going to be really important for businesses as they set their strategic direction for the future and hopefully emerge stronger. Businesses, I think, that take time now to really reflect on what their current situation is and reimagine what their future might look like, I think will probably do better. But inevitably there will be winners and there will also be losers, and we're already starting to see a bit of that in the media press. You know, the high street's an obvious place. It was struggling before. We've seen Debenhams trailed there, and those insolvencies and failures you know, are a natural part of any downturn. Weaker businesses are going to struggle to come back stronger, I think. I think a point I'd like to make, though, in relation to this is how positive actually some of our insolvency framework can be to protect businesses and allow them the opportunity to restructure. We see a lot trailed in the press around insolvency and it all being bad news, but actually we've got a really innovative tool set. We've got a process or a framework that's designed to support rescue. And we're already seeing that with the talk of light touch administration in the news, where incumbent management teams like in Debenhams are able to carry on running their business in the short-term period, but with the support of an insolvency practitioner. So for me, the new government structures that are coming in with the long-awaited insolvency legislation could be a really positive thing for businesses and a real positive tool that they can use during this crisis. If they sit down and really plan carefully, it might enable them to come back stronger.
Great. So, so what should businesses be doing now then when considering their own position and the potential for their own recovery?
Good question. I think every business has got to recognise that it's different and it's got to look at its own strengths and its own weaknesses. But for me, it's about honest reflection, really thinking carefully about where what they were doing pre-COVID-19 and where they want to be post, what was really good, what was less so, what might they need to change. I think really critically important at this time is for boards to take a really careful look at their finances. It's not just the impact on their immediate cash flows, it's what the longer term impact might be of the government rescue packages they've had to avail themselves of, and how that impacts on their balance sheet for the future and their serviceability of longer term loans. I think this kind of opportunity to reflect is really important. Lots of businesses will start to embark on a gap analysis. Where are their gaps? What needs to change? It might be around their infrastructure, technology, might be around their geography, their travel policies, could be around their constitutional setup. So what does their current framework allow them to do, and what would they like for their framework to allow them to do? And in particular, have they got the rich depth and variety of leadership sort of structures and frameworks in place to allow everybody to have their voice and to really innovate and create? I think really important is where businesses are perhaps struggling, and many will be, is to take advice sooner rather than later. In the world I work every day, which is in crisis management, often businesses come to us too late, and the sooner they come and take advice about opportunities available to them, naturally there are generally more opportunities there. There are more things, more tools we can employ to assist them. And again, I just would stress that really important point that despite the media portrayal of insolvency being a bad thing, there's a whole toolbox of insolvency and rescue procedures that can really help support businesses at this time. And directors should not be afraid to pick up the phone and explore and find out a bit more about them. I think my message is be brave.
Good. So you said directors shouldn't be afraid. What is the position of directors at this time? Obviously, they're making decisions with significant financial consequences, but shrouded with uncertainty about what the future looks like.
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult time for directors, and I'm actually a director of a few businesses outside of this partnership with Foot Anstey. Really difficult time. Nobody expects anybody to have a crystal ball. None of us know the answers. For me, it's about really prudent, sensible decision making. It's about really thinking about what the future of your business looks like, and how you, in every step you take, are thinking about the creditor position for the longer term. So how do you come back better? I think the priority is often in good times on shareholders. At the moment, with cash flows being so tight and balance sheets looking a bit more precarious than they did pre-COVID, the creditor position is really, really important. Equally important is recognizing the value of the assets that you hold. It's very easy in a crisis to think, oh, we'll just sell that, or we might be able to divest ourselves of this particular asset. Extremely important that proper value is obtained for any sale process. And so testing that value in the market is really, really important. I think when directors are doing their cash flow analysis, really robust testing of sensitivities is important. So know what your worst case, your absolute worst case looks like. Also know what your best case looks like, and something in the middle. And businesses will know what their own responses and sensitivities need to be to make their cash flow robust. One thing that doesn't happen in the good times, because in the good times decisions are made, they're made quickly and life carries on swimmingly, and boards forge new paths. Directors tend not to document too carefully their decisions, and in this kind of a period where there is a lot of uncertainty, as you've recognised, it's really important that you document your decision, and in particular the reasoning behind your decision. So I would expect directors to have day books, just jotting down as they're responding to the crisis, the decisions they make, the steps they're taking, and the thinking that has gone behind that decision process. So how does it impact the creditors, and actually how does it benefit my business for the longer term? Probably worth just a quick flag that the government, in their announcements to protect directors, did introduce a temporary suspension of wrongful trading. That's a procedure that sits in the insolvency legislation. And basically, in short, and I do paraphrase, it says that if you trade beyond a point at which you should have taken a view that you could not avoid an insolvency, you should cease to trade. And any steps you take beyond that point in time, you can be personally liable for. Brilliant news that the government suspended it temporarily. But for me, the thinking that sits for directors behind that that particular it's not an offence, that civil liability, wrongful trading, are good now. They remain good. So that thinking about, do I have a realistic prospect of avoiding insolvency, should be your question one. And your question two should be, how does this decision I am making now support the creditors on an individual basis for the longer term? And I think if you use those two questions as a test, directors actually will be making good, prudent, sensible decisions during this period. And the final point, I'm sorry, there's quite a lot in that, but it's a difficult time for directors at the moment. The final point I think I would make on that topic is actually, for directors taking critical decisions at the moment, again, seek advice, seek support. Often an independent, just listening to the thought process might come from a slightly different angle, might ask that challenging question you'd not thought about because you're trapped in your reality. And that real robust challenge will enable the decision making to be robust, sensible, and prudent, which is all directors at this time can do.
Yeah. And so finally, there's a lot of speculation about release from lockdown, and at the time we're talking now, we're awaiting to hear from Boris Johnson about that. What messages would you give to businesses right now ahead of that next phase?
I'll keep this sharp because directors will be reflecting long and hard. I think for me, it's about thinking big, adopt a growth mindset, and don't be afraid to embrace change. I think there's also the opportunity at the moment to take a real step back and take a helicopter view, to analyze where you're at, and to take proper time to plan. And finally, I think I'd say do seek out professional advice sooner rather than later. There's a whole array of restructuring tools that are available, and used positively, they could really assist your business. I think challenging times are absolutely difficult to come through, but are the catalyst and can drive seismic change in business, and that can be changed much for the better.
That's great. Thank you, Joanne. And thank you, viewers, for joining us today. If you'd like to discuss any aspect of looking ahead to recovery, then please do get in touch. We'd be delighted to help you along the journey. You can get in touch with your normal contact here or via covidresponse@footanstey.com. And do look out for future Q&As looking at operational and strategic issues relating to people, property, customers and suppliers. Many thanks.
Foot Anstey, powering your ambition.